Can Alex Periera once again haunt Israel Adysayna? With UFC 287 right around the corner, many have their eyes set on this rematch between Israel Adysayna and Alex Periera. And although all their previous matchups have been relatively close between these two guys, 2 in kickboxing and 1 in MMA, Alex Periera ended up winning all 3 of those previous fights. And the question at this point is, could Israel Adysayna finally get out of the curse of Alex Periera, or will Alex continue to have dominance over Izzy? But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy MMA. I make opinionative MMA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. But anyways, let's get into it. Alex Periera's career in the UFC so far has been a very impressive one. Although it was pretty clear that he was fast-tracked towards a title and he was given some favorable matchups according to his style, it still was a very impressive run. The way he was able to get that flying knee knockout in his UFC debut was impressive. The way he was able to get that hard-fought decision victory over Bruno Silva was impressive. The way he was able to easily find his signature left hook to knock out Sean Strickland in the first round was impressive. And all of those fights that I just mentioned eventually led him to a title shot against Israel Adysayna, which is the plan all along. And going into that Izzy fight, a lot of people thought this was a very close matchup between the two guys. Both guys are elite of the elite kickboxers, but I would say slightly more people favored Israel Adysayna just due to the fact that he had more MMA experience than Alex did. And early on in their matchup, I would say Izzy's experience advantage in terms of MMA over Alex was showing to be an advantage, as Izzy was successfully able to take the fight to the ground in a couple rounds, and he definitely did have a lot of success with that. But although Izzy was convincingly winning that matchup going into the 5th round, all that didn't matter when Alex decided to turn it up. As soon as that 5th round started, it was pretty clear that Alex had a different mindset out there, and he looked for the knockout, and he eventually got it early in that 5th round. And after that victory over Izzy in that title fight, a lot of people started to think that Alex just had Izzy's number. And that brings us to the point where we're at currently, where we're currently awaiting for the rematch between these two guys. But now, before we get into this specific matchup, let's take a closer look at Alex's game to see what he does well out there. So it's pretty clear that Alex Periera is basically solely a striker out there. In terms of his stand-up abilities, he's definitely one of the best in the UFC. He has a great ability to throw out that jab, he has a really nice ability to throw that left or right straight, nice uppercuts, a phenomenal hook, specifically that left hook, it's a signature shot. And overall, in terms of his boxing, it's tremendous, and he also has a tremendous amount of power, specifically in that left hook as I mentioned. But besides his boxing ability, Alex also has a great kicking game as well. He has a great ability to throw kicks to the legs, as we actually saw that do a lot of damage to Izzy in their first UFC matchup, but he also has a great ability to throw kicks to the body, kicks to the head, and literally he can do everything imaginable out there with those kicks, and he also has a tremendous amount of power with his legs as well. In terms of his chin, I would say Alex has a very good chin, although he did get hurt pretty badly in the first round of their last matchup, but overall I do think Alex has a really good chin. In terms of his cardio, I would also say he has pretty good cardio as well, but in terms of his ground game, there isn't much to it. Now obviously Alex has had time to improve at least slightly. He hasn't had the most amount of time, but there has been some time since we last saw him, so we might actually see some improvements from him in terms of his ground game. Whether you talk about his takedown defense or maybe some different things on the ground as well, as he is working with Glover Teixeira at the moment. But with that being said, I do think Alex is still probably just going to be a stand-up fighter out there, and he's not going to have much on the ground. But now let's move on to Israel Adysayna and see what he does well out there. So similar to Alex Periera, Israel Adysayna is clearly a striker out there. He has a really nice ability to throw that jab, he has a nice left to right straight, has a phenomenal ability to switch stances whenever he wants, has really nice hooks, a decent uppercut, and overall in terms of his punches, he's just very clean and fast with it, while also providing a good amount of power with his punches. Now also similar to Alex Periera, Izzy has a tremendous kicking game, probably even better than Alex's to be honest. Izzy has a great ability to consistently throw kicks to the legs, while also throwing kicks to the body and kicks to the head as well, specifically that question mark kick that he loves. And with those kicks, not only is Izzy extremely fast with them, but he also does a phenomenal job at using a lot of power with those kicks. Now in terms of his chin, Izzy definitely has a a very, very good chin, because even though he was technically TKO'd in their last matchup, I don't necessarily think he was completely out of it. I do think he was rocked and he was really hurt, and I honestly do think it was a fair stoppage, but in terms of getting knocked out cold or being completely out of it, I don't necessarily think Izzy was at that point. But in terms of his takedown defense, Izzy actually has phenomenal takedown defense, and I do think it would be very hard for Alex to take the fight to the ground, but at the end of the day, I don't even think he would want to take it there. But on the ground, I would say Izzy has decent jiu-jitsu, but who knows how much this is going to play a factor in this matchup anyway. But now, let's take a deeper dive into this specific matchup between these two guys. Well, as I mentioned before, I think this is an extremely close matchup, and I think there are a couple different keys for both guys that would determine who ends up winning this matchup. And for Izzy, I think the key is he needs to be perfect. And in their first MMA matchup, he was basically perfect, up 3 rounds to 1 going into the 5th, but unfortunately in that 5th round, he ended up getting caught and TKO finished. So in my opinion, what Izzy needs to do in this rematch between these two guys is he needs to maintain constant forward pressure, as in my opinion, the fact that he kept getting backed up consistently in that matchup last time was actually a huge reason for why he ended up getting finished. And if Izzy is able to maintain constant forward pressure, I do think he'll have a lot more success this time, but also I think he needs to incorporate the wrestling as well. As he did do a pretty decent job at doing that in their first matchup in MMA, I definitely think he needs to do it once again in this matchup as well. Now, a lot of people think Izzy's going to be a lot more aggressive out there this time than he was last time, but in my opinion, I do think he can have success with that strategy, but he definitely needs to be cautious about that. Because being more aggressive at times could be effective, but if you overextend yourself and be more aggressive when you otherwise shouldn't have been, you can easily get clipped earlier and get finished earlier. So I definitely think Izzy needs to be a little bit more aggressive, but at the same time be defensively sound and wait for those openings while also incorporating the wrestling. And I think if he's able to do all those things, he'll be able to be successful on Saturday night. But for Alex Periera, I think the keys for him are a lot more simple. I think he needs to implement consistent forward pressure. When he was doing that in their first matchup in MMA, at least, he was having a lot of success, and eventually find that knockout blow. I do think it's possible that Alex Periera could beat Izzy by decision, but I think it's a lot more likely if Alex wins, it's probably going to be by knockout. So I definitely think he should do whatever it takes in order to find that seminal blow. But getting into my official prediction for this matchup, I do think Izzy is the overall better kickboxer, and to be honest, I do think he should win. But when you look at their track record and consider that Alex has beaten Izzy 3 times already, and when you look at longtime champs losing their belts, they don't necessarily have all that much success when trying to retain that belt. So just based on the history, I think I will need to go with Alex Periera by knockout once again, although as I mentioned, I do think Izzy is the better kickboxer and I do think he should win. But I guess only time will tell what does end up happening between these two guys, but I'm extremely excited to see what ends up happening. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Alex Periera could once again beat Israel Adysayna, or do you think Izzy's gonna win this time? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these 2 videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.